Hello, and welcome once again to Speakeasy with Paul F. Tompkins. I am still Paul F. Tompkins. You will recognize my next guest from his roles on the television series The Office, from the Hangover series of films, and other film and television appearances too numerous to mention. We're going to talk about some of them, though. Please say hello to Ed Helms. Ed, thank you very much for being here.
Hello.
Cheers
It's a distinct pleasure.
Were you always a comedy fan?
I have a very early memory of around 8 years old. I would stay up late with my buddy Nicholas Chu.
Like the verb.
Nicholas Chu. Yeah, he was my best friend as a kid. And we would stay up late and watch Saturday Night Live. It was really an incredible time on the show because Eddie Murphy was on and Joe Piscopo. It was those Lorne Michael absentee years, which were very good. Eddie Murphy to me was the king. I just loved Eddie Murphy. And I didn't even understand 90% of the comedy. But the energy, the live audience on Saturday Night Live was electric, and I just wanted to be a part of it. And I idolized those guys. I don't know why. I don't know why I responded to that. I think I've heard Judd Apatow talk about this a little bit. When you're making people laugh, you know for an instant that they don't hate you. And that's a sad thing. I mean, that I think a lot of comedians sort of move through the world with the assumption that most people hate them, or some kind of cross to bear, or some sort of burden like that. I don't totally understand that psychology, but it kind of makes sense to me. I wouldn't even say it's necessarily healthy, but it's what it is.
It's not healthy.
It's not healthy. No, sir. But it is what it is. It's who I am, and I love it.
You started in stand-up, right? You did stand-up for a bit.
I did, yeah.
Did you enjoy stand-up or no? Because you eventually moved to improv.
Yeah, I loved stand-up. I did it at a time in New York City when there was a little influx of really passionate people doing it. Dimitri Martin and Leo Allen and Eric Slovin and Eugene Merman. And there was this little cadre of like super eager, passionate idiots like myself. And it was a community. And I think that's what I loved the most about it, was I could go to any number of comedy clubs and feel right at home. And it wasn't even that I was very good. It was that the people who were there every night and committed knew that about each other and somehow had a little respect for each other, even if we sucked as comedians. Right. It was the commitment level that everyone respected in each other. Yeah, I loved it. It was brutal, but I felt like I was paying dues. I remember my dad was begging me to go to grad school because he was one of the first in his family to even go to college. Right. So, God bless him. Education was so important to him, and he just said, I don't care what it is, just get a terminal degree in something. Go, but it can be theater. Right. And I was like, oh, theater, like, who wants to study acting? That's for nerds. Like, but I actually had this long talk with him where I explained, like, I know it sounds weird, but I go to these comedy clubs for 6 hours every night. I'm learning. Like that, this is my grad school.
Talk to me about The Daily Show. This is your first big gig, right?
Yes.
And it's at the time you joined the show, Jon Stewart has taken over as the host, made it even more of a thing, Did you feel like you were ready for it when it happened?
My goal was to get on Saturday Night Live, just everybody. So but around that time, I was such a huge Daily Show fan that I had I'd opened my mind to the idea of, okay, I'll do Saturday Night Live or The Daily Show. Right. I love both of these things equally. I watched the show so much that I had a weirdly deep understanding of its tone and sort of comedic style, and I really identified with Stephen Colbert and with Steve Carell as performers. I didn't know them at the time, but I just thought, I get these guys, like, I can do that. Right. So to answer your question, I was weirdly arrogant going into that audition because I just knew it so well. And on top of that, I had been sustaining myself for a couple of years at that point as a full-time commercial voiceover actor. So I went on 5, 6, 7 auditions a day for radio and TV voiceover work.
Which people might not know this. That's a difficult world to get into.
Everyone thinks it's like, oh, I want to do voiceovers. Like you get a commercial, you make all this money, like it takes no time. That's a fantasy. The reality is, to make any money at voiceovers, it is a full-time commitment. You are auditioning 5, 6, 7 times a day. And at that time, you didn't just go into your agency and throw down tracks and then they emailed them around.
Oh, much less home studio. Like no one had, there was no garage band.
You went to casting agents all over Manhattan all day long. And I had this like big longboard skateboard and I just zoomed all over Manhattan all day going to auditions. But I didn't want to be a voiceover person. I wanted to do comedy. But what I didn't realize going into my Daily Show audition is that I knew how to audition. I'd been on hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of auditions over the last 3 or 4 years.
Which is a huge thing because auditions are nerve-wracking. But I would imagine doing it all day long on a regular basis probably would relax you a little bit.
It taught me, I took it all seriously. I did my best every time, but because I only booked 1 in 50 auditions, I knew walking out, I could let it go. Like it just washed off. I was never like, did I get it? Was that good? It was just on to the next one. And so I didn't realize it, but that skill, I think, really helped me in that Daily Show audition.
At this point in that show, you were still able to talk to most people out there, on the road who maybe did not know that this was a comedy show and that you were not a real, quote-unquote, reporter. Were there times where that was more challenging than other times?
It was always very challenging for me because I was raised a nice Southern boy, and my instinct, I also am not a psychopath. I have empathy for my fellow human beings. So my instinct is always to disarm people and make people feel comfortable and be engaging and kind generally. That's how I try to move through the world. The Daily Show correspondent role requires you to be a dick and hopefully a very funny dick, but you have to be kind of a jerk. And what's weird, what I learned quickly is that we would arrive for an interview and meet the person I was interviewing. And the first couple of times I did that, I would be like, hey, how's it going? Where are you from? What, like chit chat. Okay, let's sit down to the interview. And then I would get like weird and intense with them. And that didn't work.
You'd presented yourself
I had presented myself as a friendly person. Then I tried to switch gears in the interview, and it was just weird and confusing for both of us. So what I learned, sadly, was that when I showed up for these interviews, I had to be sort of cold and aloof and curt. And then when we sat down for the interviews, I could stay that way for the interview. And that's uncomfortable for me. And it's something that Carell and I really would talk about a lot on The Office because he didn't like it either. Like, it made him uncomfortable to some extent. But I'll give John a lot of credit because he took The Daily Show. In the Kilborn days, the correspondent work was much more about ridicule. And then John didn't like that. And to his credit, he really steered the correspondent work more over into silliness and satire and just about elucidating hypocrisy. Colbert was the prototype in a lot of ways, and as the Stone Phillips, very straight gravitas reporter, he had a lightning mind for satire. Then you had Carell, who made an art form out of being an idiot reporter. He took it in a whole other direction of being just like the clueless oaf. And they both were very distinct and extremely hysterical. I shamelessly pilfered from both. I really tried to, before I got on the show, I really idolized them. And then when I got there, and I had a chance to try my own hand, it really, especially for the first year, it was a lot of like, what would Colbert do?
Right.
Or like, what would Carell?
Sure. So from The Daily Show comes The Office. You played Andy on The Office. You're just supposed to be on there for a few episodes, and it turned into a series regular. Was this something that you had always been wanting to do, or was this something that you felt after The Daily Show, I want to try something that's absolutely different than what I've been doing?
It's funny when you're starting out, you see each horizon as like landing. You know what I mean? You think, I thought if I get on The Daily Show, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm set.
Yeah.
And then you're not, and you get there, and now I've seen so many horizons on up through The Office and The Hangover, and I now appreciate more than ever. You're never set. Like it's never done. You always have to be proving yourself. So after 4.5 years on The Daily Show, I thought I need to change or expand the perception of me as a performer. Acting as a character seemed like the right way to do that. So I started looking for sitcom roles, and I did a pilot for NBC. It didn't get picked up, but it went well. They liked me. They set me up with a meeting with Greg Daniels. He said, hey, we have this part. It'll be cool for you. It's 8 episodes. And I said, that sounds awesome. I loved The Office at that point. Carell was killing it. It was 2 seasons in. And The Daily Show said, well, if you go for 2 months, we're probably going to fill your spot. We can't guarantee you have a job. And I was like, oh boy. I felt like if I can do well in The Office, I'll have more stuff will happen.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure of it, but I felt it. And I got enough encouragement. I also got a lot of discouragement at the time. People saying like, are you insane?
Right.
Daily Show is winning Emmys every year.
Right.
Like, get your ass back in that seat and stay on that show. But something in me just needed to mix it up at the time. And then the series regular gig materialized, and I was like, moving to LA.
Right.
Let's do this.
The Hangover films, this huge phenomenon, even more so than The Office, this changes your life in a very specific way. As many people as have seen your work on The Office, everybody has seen The Hangover. Everybody has seen it. The world over. So this is obviously impacting your life in a very profound way.
Yeah.
And how difficult was that adjustment?
It was, I'm not sure difficult is the right word. It was mostly exciting. It was just like getting strapped to a rocket ship on the outside of the rocket ship. It was so fast and exciting and exhilarating. And then the challenges, I think, came later, not long after, but the realization that the way I move through the world is now permanently changed. And it's largely good, but it's different. And change, just on its own, can be terrifying.
Yeah.
So there were moments of panic, like, I can't go back. I can't erase The Hangover. Like, I can't be anonymous anymore. When you become so well known so quickly, and in this business, when you become sought after, which happened instantly, and that comes and goes, but it was certainly hot for a beat there, you suddenly have all these opportunities to be different, or to be a different kind of person, or opportunities to hang around people that you never would have known before, or those choices that I was confronted with at that time really challenged my core of like who I am and who I want to be, and suddenly no one's gonna get mad at you if you're an asshole. That's weird. Right. No one's gonna give you shit if you spin out and are unpleasant. So you have all these options to be. You can be a maniac if you want.
Although it's not necessarily, I mean, not in the sense of I'm going to choose to be maniac, but you can see how easy it would be. Yeah. You would start to notice, like, oh, there's no repercussions from my actions in this professional setting. Like, I can behave wildly unprofessional, And because my name is a certain place on this list, no one is ever going to challenge it. As long as the work gets done.
Yeah.
Something that's very important to you is bluegrass music. You started a bluegrass festival here in Los Angeles called the Bluegrass Situation.
And what little bluegrass was happening in LA seemed to be happening at Largo. Mark Flanagan, the proprietor, Flanny. Flanny and I just kind of kicked it around, like, wouldn't it be fun to just dedicate a weekend to this? What do we call it? I don't know, it's a bluegrass situation. We'll just call it that. And so we did, and we lined up some great acts. The first year was Steve Martin and Steep Canyon Rangers, and Sean and Sarah Watkins did their Watkins Family Hour, and the Punch Brothers played, and it just was an epic good time, and tons of fun. We sold out every show. We did it again, and then thought, maybe we can turn this into like more of a municipal event for the city of Los Angeles. Maybe eventually like the Hardly Strictly Bluegrass Festival in San Francisco, which attracts 300,000 people annually.
Wow. Where can people get tickets?
You can go to the bluegrasssituation.com.
There we go.
That's one place to get tickets, or I think through Golden Voice as well.
Go to bluegrasssituation.com.
Yeah, go to bluegrasssituation.com, which is the sister website of the whole
Let's say it
event.
in this camera too. Go to bluegrasssituation.com.
It's a remarkable website.
Yes.
Tons of fun.
It's a remarkable website.
It's HTML, I believe.
Ed Helms, thank you so much for talking with us today. Cheers
Such
to you.
a pleasure.
Thank you indeed. That does it for this round of Speakeasy. Please join us again next time when my guest will be a different person who is also starting a rival bluegrass festival. Is that going to be a problem?
A little bit, yeah.
I shouldn't have mentioned that. I bet I shouldn't have mentioned it.
I would like to do a play that's like a serious play, because to make people laugh it's harder. But to make people just sit there and go,
But you, that's your.
here's what
that's
people
your
do
idea
when
of
they're
theater.
enjoying plays.